Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying time is here. That's right, we're talking about 1981's The Funhouse on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from Ohio. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters. Today, we're going to unpack all the gory details of Tobe Hooper's The Funhouse in the hopes that a trapped teen or a gas station attendant's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust to make sure I don't steal a carny's money. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe.
I got my rubber knife. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to humiliate you as you're nude and vulnerable in the shower.
That's not true. No one can humiliate me when I'm nude and vulnerable. That's when I'm at my strongest. As longtime listeners know, of course, that is when I record completely in the nude.
And vulnerable.
And vulnerable. I mean, very vulnerable. You can hear it in my voice. Now, I don't want to alarm you, Gina, but we are not alone. That's right. We have a very special guest. Now, you, of course, know her as a striking screenwriter, but more importantly, a returning champion here to Kill by Kill, the one, the only April Wolfe. How are you doing today, April?
Hi. I'm actually doing pretty okay despite the heat here. It's about 100 degrees, but it's fine. It's fine.
Totally normal. Everything's cool. Everything's great. That's why I say it now. That's my mantra. Everything's cool. Everything's great.
Yep. Everything's fine. But yeah, I'm just very excited to talk about this movie.
Yes, when I saw it, I had this in the bullpen for a very long time. I really love The Funhouse. And when I really got down to, damn it, I'm putting it on the calendar. The only name I could even dream of putting next to it was April Wolfe. This feels like a very April movie. I don't know if it's necessarily is. It just felt right. So my question to you, April, is when was the first time you encountered The Funhouse?
Actually, it was just a few years ago. There was a screening of the film print before they had remastered this or something. And the writer, Larry Block, was there doing a Q&A. So it was really only a few years ago that this kind of crossed my path. I hadn't been able to see it previously. So... And then it was so wild to see it after I saw the film print and see how vibrant the colors were from the remaster of it on the digital. So it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, it is beautifully photographed. I think it's stunningly set, designed, and dressed. It feels like Hooper is going for it in a way here that is because there's a big push from Texas Chainsaw being that very in the moment, practically documentary feel. And then he has a distinct desire to get theatrical with things, starting with Eaten Alive, which is like a one set special. And then this is also kind of a one set special where you have one big set that you're going to be filming for a long period of time. And then this carnival set, which they had to set up in Miami during the midst of the cocaine cowboy wars happening, and also a teenster got killed on this set. So it was funky, y'all. things were sweaty.
Cursed shoot.
And this is coming after Hooper gets kicked off of 2 movies prior to him filming the TV version of Salem's Lot. Like, he's driven off of 2 sets of films that are not good for having lost him. And it's weird that he had this cacophony of events happen. And did you ever happen to cross paths with Hooper here in town?
No, I never did. Yeah, I never did.
Neither did I. I only heard gentle things. Like the rap on him for the longest time was that you just never saw him without a Coke or Dr. Pepper in his hand. He was just kind of like, that was his big vice. He loved a soda. And then this weird events of leading into this, where he kind of had this, is he a one-trick pony? Is Texas Chainsaw like the one thing he's going to do? And then Salem's Lot was so momentous to think about how many millions of people actually watched that when it first premiered, that like literally only a month later, they reran it. That was how big it was. It was huge. And so he could kind of do anything he wanted. And he figured, well, this under $3 million horror movie for Universal seems like I can do my thing with it. And he was really attracted to Block's script. So, April, what was Block's feeling about connecting with Tobe Hooper?
I mean, so from what I remember, and this is a while ago, so I'm trying to remember exactly what he was saying, but he just seemed like Block, when this hit for him, you know, he was like a struggling wannabe, like we all are. And then this felt like, oh my God, it's finally happening. And I know that he had a lot of setbacks on the script, and it was like sometimes disappointing and sometimes not. But like, you know, when it was set up with Tobe Hooper, I think it was just like, oh, this is finally going to happen. This is it.
And it kind of lands in that glut of horror content that's coming out post not only Halloween, but especially Friday the 13th. It just felt like everyone was like, get me one of those. Wait, get me 5 of those. And so they're coming fast and furious. And so this was supposed to come out a little earlier. It ran a little long. There were some problems on set with one of their reels got thrown in the ocean by Teamsters because someone else drove a different reel to an airplane to fly to Los Angeles. So weird things happened here. That being said, it made money. It multiplied 2.5 from the negative pickup that Universal had. Vernal Fields took an editorial pass on it, particularly because she liked the way it looked and felt she could deepen the dread leading up to them going inside the funhouse. And it pays off in absolute spades as far as I'm concerned. Gina, when was the first time you encountered the funhouse?
Oh, I'm sure I saw it on cable as a kid. It's odd because it just kind of disappeared for a little while. Like it was really left out of the 80s slasher conversation because I think that, I mean, I guess you could consider it a slasher generally. It's you know, you could consider it a slasher, you know, the same way you consider Texas Chainsaw a slasher. It certainly has a lot of similar elements. And then, I did not see it for a long time. And then it popped up on Criterion, of all places, last year as part of a really, really incredible 80s horror lineup that had a lot of stuff that I had just not seen in many years. A couple things that I was pretty sure I had imagined because that was like how out of print and, just generally, out of the public conscience they were. Yeah. And so I rewatched it and I was surprised by how much I remembered about it. And surprised at how, despite it sort of being a kind of gnarly film in theme, how clean and professional it looks.
Well, I feel like, people kind of peg Cooper as one kind of filmmaker, and then he like disappears up until the point where he directs Poltergeist and then disappears again in their minds. And that's not really the case. Like, he's quite skilled. He really knows what he's doing. And the one element that I feel is captured here really well, and that I feel typifies who Hooper is as a filmmaker, is he's unnaturally gifted at driving performers to lose their minds on screen. It's the one point I want to drive home today. And Hooper, he's profoundly skilled at like showing that one moment where someone's tenuous grasp on sanity breaks. The thread that was binding them to rational thought snaps, and it leaves them a screaming batch of limbs willing to do anything to escape a situation that happens to be encircling them. You know, you see it in Texas Chainsaw with Sally. You see it in Poltergeist after the tree attack, and when Diane lands in a pool full of skeletons. You know, Stretch in Texas Chainsaw 2 when she's trapped in an ice tub full of his favorite Dr. Peppers and Cokes, and Leatherface is literally having sex with her with a chainsaw in ice, and she's losing her mind. That's my Tobe Hooper. No one else can do that. No one else can do that.
And yet, to my knowledge, I've never heard anything. I know that Marilyn Burns found the experience of filming Texas Chainsaw pretty grueling, but so did everybody else involved in it because of just the environment they were in and the shooting.
Hot as hell, it was smelly.
Right, the shooting hours, the low budget they had to work with. But other than that, I did not hear. I've never heard, and I could be wrong. I'm just saying I never heard stories about him, you know, going to abusive methods to getting a performance out of his actors, like, you know, Stanley Kubrick with Shelley Duvall, or you know, William Friedkin with The Exorcist, where, you know, he was doing questionable things to wear them down psychologically.
No, I think it was the opposite. I think he was quite passive as a director, and he was subtle in the way he wanted to inform actors and his collaborators of what was going on. And people viewed that as like, he's not strong enough. He's not manhandling the situation enough. That's how Klaus Kinski got him kicked off of Venom. Like, Kinski was out of his mind, and he was going to rampage against anybody when he was on that set. So they just like pulled a James Cameron and Alien sort of deal. This is a British set with a British crew, and here comes this hotshot American who supposedly made this amazing movie, and they're like, you suck, get out of here, you're not professional enough. And he's like, I don't need this shit, and left. And it's kind of like, I think he was too passive, and people kind of took advantage of that. But his skill in creating an image and putting characters in a guided situation where he's pushing them through a situation is really evident in the Funhouse. This is a remarkable movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's one of those films where, as well, if you watch this, it's so evident that all of the bullshit rumors about him not directing Poltergeist and it actually being Spielberg, it kind of puts those things to rest, because to me, it got so many of the same qualities and shots. Yeah. You know, like there's that scene where the blonde is grasping a knife and kind of following her, you know, dead boyfriend through the funhouse before the trap doors get her. And it's just like, yes, this is like something like this shot that like kind of following her while she's losing her mind, as you're talking about. Like that to me seems like it's just ripped out of Poltergeist.
Yes, I think he is able to, and there you can tell that obviously Spielberg, he wrote the script. He's an active producer. There's the incident where basically they're both trying to give guidance to an actor, and she goes, I can't answer to two directors. And Spielberg backs off immediately. Spielberg 100% like directed that second unit shot of the guy ripping his own face off. That's a Spielbergian shot. His crew is involved there. They came straight off of E.T. into this bad boy. That being said, the reason Poltergeist works is because Tobe Hooper knows how to drive people out of their mind on camera and capture that moment where they're like, my shell is here, but my mind left. I'm just screaming now. And a lot of people think they can make that happen, but he's the only person I've ever seen be able to truly capture that time and time again on camera. It's pretty incredible. And then there's his eye for shots, for composition, for all the things that make the Funhouse really cool. There's the Suspiria-esque color elements of it. And just the unnerving dread that he's able to build up. Like, you can tell the script was originally, the Funhouse was supposed to be paranormal. It's supposed to be full of ghosts. And Madame Zena, when she tells Amy, when she's reading her palm, like, do you see the future? Can you sense when events are about to happen? That's from Block's original script, where everyone's like, let's stay over in the Funhouse. And she's like, that's a bad idea. I get bad vibes from that. It's all building that way. And then when Hooper's involved, he's kind of like, well, I think there's a seedy underbelly to America, the carnival, traveling town to town. What if there's this, makeshift family that is essentially murdering people town to town, and while it's making them money, it's going to catch up to them eventually, and that's what happens here. And the movie shifts from that point forward.
Yeah, we have another weird family like Texas Chainsaw. There are a lot of similar elements there.
Yeah, originally, all the figures within the Funhouse actually contained the corpses of Gunther's previous victims. The little girls being found on the other side of the street of the carnival was the exception rather than the rule. Most of them got stuffed into the mechanical figures inside the Funhouse. And at some point, Amy's, is wandering around, and all of those figures start falling, all those bodies start falling out of all the figures. And she's trying to make her escape. And I think the budget just stopped that.
I mean, that's just reusing and recycling. That's smart.
It is upcycling, the most important kind of upcycling. I do enjoy, speaking of those figures, the opening focuses very much on them. They found that carnivals would winter in Florida before, because usually their busier seasons are in the spring, summer, and early fall. And so they would winter, they would bring all their equipment down to Florida, and that's how they could get them for cheap, including all those insane, or as MST3K used to say, these opening credits are grade A nightmare fuel.
I love any kind of carnival motif, like especially when it's used in something like in something horror or mystery related. Like I loved Nightmare Alley. I enjoyed this. I enjoy any sort of, because I as I mentioned before, I grew up in a resort town.
That's right.
And so I kind of grew up around that element. Like, my father would know people that worked these carnival rides, and I spent a lot of time there. So there's something that feels, as creepy as they are, they also feel kind of familiar to me in an oddly comforting way. So yeah, anything that involves weird carnivals, I'm always 100% here for it.
Yeah, I enjoy many of these figures, including one that looks exactly like Ortega from the Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Died and Became Mixed Up Zombies. I really like that.
They didn't die. They stopped living.
Oh, that's right. They stopped living and became mixed up zombies. That's true.
But they had a choice.
They had a choice.
There's also like a tourist trap.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know, tourist trap, and then what's the Wax movie? House of Wax.
House of Wax. Yeah, I was thinking of that too. Yeah, the encasing the bodies of his previous victims in those displays.
Right. And the other thing that sort of that's an ongoing trope here for Hooper is he carries over the idea of a horror kid, which we see time and time again. It happens in Salem Lot. It happens in Friday the 13th Part 4. And here we have Joey, who is obviously a big-time monster kid and a total perv.
He is a monster kid.
Yes. He is. And there's a weird retribution angle to this where,
he's angry because his sister is upset that he basically assaulted her while she's naked in the shower.
Yeah. Everyone should take a couple naked assaultings in the shower. It's all between family members. Oh my God. It's so crazy that there's this sort of Halloween Psycho riff. The exact same year, De Palma does another Halloween Psycho riff in Blowout. Everyone's thinking about it all at the same time. of course, the big difference here is that Joey has not only like posters of monsters and whatnot, but he also has a wall of chains, whips, and manacles. What do you need that for?
He's like, I mentioned these to you offline, but yeah, he's basically like the brother in River's Edge. I give it another like 5 years where he's like literally killing someone. And he's already torn the wings off supplies. You just know it.
But also, it's that weird undercurrent that seems to pervade a lot of 80s movies, in particular, where the kid who likes horror movies is a terrible person. And it's like, but that's also your audience.
Yeah. Are we terrible people?
I hope not, April. I certainly don't view you or Gina as horrible people.
I mean, Salem's Lot, he was the hero, though. Like, yes. His knowledge. And this is, Freya, this is out of the book too, that his knowledge of horror tropes basically didn't save his parents' lives, unfortunately, but it saved his own life. Mm-hmm. And, managed to, get him out of the town and, hopefully defeat the vampire menace. But no, I mean, it is interesting now, that there's kind of that turnaround where, sometimes it makes you the hero. And sometimes it just makes you a real fucking creep.
Well, there's also the I would say that he likes horror, but he also misunderstands it. Like, this is a guy who like glorifies the monster without knowing it, like this kid.
Right.
So like, I'll be a little bit more nuanced and say that like he's one of many people who completely miss the point of horror and identify with the wrong things and idolize maybe the wrong things.
And there's also the element, particularly of the monster movies that he's into, those Universal monsters. They're very tragic stories. They're like, Frankenstein's monster doesn't want to be a bad guy, but he's made up of some pretty bad parts and an irregular brain. So he throws some children in lakes. Like, we all make mistakes,
Yeah, he's learning.
What it comes down to. And it also doesn't help that Amy and Joey's parents are like proto Elm Street parents. They're not into raising children. And also, she is decidedly drunk throughout this motion picture.
Yeah, we got some classic, like, do not give a shit parents.
And, we grew up in the era, like...
Oh, yeah, no, I had classic do not give a shit parents. So, I mean, I get it. And it's like, yeah, you're going to wander off to the carnival at 9:00 at night. Have fun.
So like, there's a setup here that, the house is in turmoil. And when they do eventually, like, Joey makes his own journey to the carnival and is waiting for Amy to emerge out of the funhouse, and it never happens. And when he gets close enough to try to peek inside, Gunther takes a swipe at him. And then Carney like grabs him from behind and he passes out. And they call Joey's parents to come pick him up. And you get the impression that the Carney who has made this call kind of hoped that the parents wouldn't show up.
He could just have him working the popcorn stand the next day or something.
Yeah, he's got tiny hands. He can just loosen those nuts so much easier when you reach into the mechanics. I don't know, like, could have had a good life.
Well, honestly, if I saw, like, was he like kids like what, 9 or 10? Like, if I saw like a 9 or 10-year-old kid just walking around a carnival by himself, I'd be like, that child doesn't have parents. I could add it to the payroll.
Well, he has 2 parents, and one of those parents has a big gulp of bourbon that she's working on, and is noticeably drunk throughout the motion picture. She's a real statement.
She's a real Sarah T. portrait of a middle-aged alcoholic.
And then, Amy's got trouble at home, but she's not making great decisions outside of the house either, because she's finally accepted a date proposal from Buzz, who works at the local gas station.
Don't date men named Buzz who work at the local gas station.
Don't date men named Buzz. Don't talk to guys who have floppy hair over 35. These are the rules of Kill by Kill. And he's the kind of guy who honks at his date instead of knocking on the door like a fucking human being. Like, you can tell, like, shit's wrong.
Yeah, this whole nice disaster from the beginning.
Truly, it is fated that things are going to go awry. How do I describe Buzz? He has a really boss-looking car and a pair of fuzzy dice, and also his car has decorative dice hanging from the rearview mirror. It's a balls joke, everyone. So, Buzz, she goes, maybe we don't go to the carnival that was tied to the deaths of 2 children. You think maybe we could not do that and steer this in a different direction? And he's like, listen, I didn't get this far listening to women. So we'll be going to that carnival and we'll be picking up your dipshit friends. It would be antithetical. It would literally violate every tenet Kill by Kill has. If I did not point out that the house that Joey and Amy live in, the outside of it, is actually the Munsters TV house. And also the sorority window that Bluto spies on girls in their underwear in Animal House on the Universal Studios backlot. Would I ever miss a chance to point out something stupid on the Universal backlot? No, that's the way I roll. So Buzz also picks up this second couple, Liz, who happens to own the tightest red pants that have ever been manufactured. And you have Richie, who looks like he's time jumped from the set of 30-something and is the biggest asshole we may have ever covered on this show, Gina.
Yeah, he is up there. He is. We just watched Final Destination 4.
Yes.
So that's saying a lot.
That is saying, if you took every character in the Final Destination and Frankensteined them into one person, they may end up being Richie, but I don't know. Richie is a chaos agent. He's like the fucking Joker. I don't understand him as a human being. He makes every wrong decision and then makes you feel like an idiot if you don't follow him into this terrible decision-making process.
Yeah, he's basically like peer pressure put into human form.
And then, so they go to this carnival and you can tell right away things aren't right here, because almost immediately once they walk into the joint, we see a guy who I've designated as Torgo Jr. And Torgo Jr. looks like he's been applying grease to the gears of all the mechanics with his face. I've never seen a dirtier person portrayed on screen.
Oh, no, I mean, honestly, the entire, like, carnival crew is just covered in a crust of filth.
It's grody beyond measure.
You had to, like, scrape it off with a credit card.
I don't think there's a lot of people at this carnival with credit cards.
Well, no doubt.
Maybe a AAA card is about as hoity-toity as this crew gets. But he's just eating dirty cornbread next to toddlers, and people are like, "It's the carnival, y'all," and that's the way the entire night goes.
It's the local color.
It's just 45 minutes of unnerving dread. And the patrons of this carnival. Like it's Dante's Inferno, but with Calliope music in the background.
Yeah, it's like you're about to, something bad's going to happen. Maybe not necessarily to these characters that just walked in, but something bad's going to happen. Yes. Someone's going to get thrown off of a cheap ride. Someone's going to get food poisoning is going to spread through the carnival, but something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, someone's going to lose a finger in the gears. Like it's in the air, everyone. The next carnival person that we meet, I've designated Bathroom Hag. I don't really know what else to call her, but she just shows up places and tells you God's watching you in the most menacing manner possible. She's like
the rare lady Crazy Ralph.
Yeah.
She's great. She reminds me of a woman that I had an encounter with in the theater seeing Oppenheimer, actually. So it's really fresh in my head. Just kind of like a harbinger of like, everything's going to be bad. You're doing something wrong. I hate you.
and she just hisses at people. And like, I don't think God envisioned people harassing other people into their faith inside of a bathroom. I don't think that's how you're going to curve people over to your idea of what religion is.
Wait, have you ever had someone try to harass you into their faith in the bathroom? Because I have.
Yes, unfortunately.
Why? It's weird, right? It's a captive audience. Yes. So I get actually makes sense in some way, I guess.
Yeah, it's absolutely bizarre. People are fucking inappropriate in bathrooms too often. The last incident, which happened not too long ago, which was someone telling my son he needed to get out of the men's room because he's a girl. And he just has beautiful hair and fine features. I'm sorry.
He's just gorgeous. Look.
It's not my fault. I promise you, he can open his mom's phone with his own face. It's due to her that he's very, very attractive. But he does not have to leave the men's room, sir. That was quite an incident. Speaking of grown men being inappropriate to children, we have Joey being harassed on the side of the road by a guy with a shotgun.
That's how you know it's really Florida, even though it's set in Iowa.
Yeah, I had messaged Gina while I was watching it. It's even for a movie that's supposedly taking place in Ohio. There are very few movies that feel as Florida as the Funhouse.
Yeah, this is excruciatingly Florida.
It's Florida to the max, and the man has a whole mouthful of dead teeth. And this includes a creature in it who has all sorts of messed up teeth. But I think I'm more disturbed by Shotgun Man's teeth than I am Gunther's.
Well, yeah, because he's probably not wearing an appliance.
Sure. So along their journey in the carnival here, you can slowly feel a descent into an experience that's out of their control. There are things that they don't recognize are warning signals and red flags. One of them being that the carnival barker that they see 3 times. He's 3 different people, but he's played by the same actor, and this is an intentional thing, and it's very unnerving because I'm not sure which one of these barkers I like the least for various reasons. Let's talk about barker number 1. He works the animal anomaly tent and is dressed for an evening out on the set of Cruising. He's wearing a hoop earring like he's like a fucking pirate, but he also has enough chains to be Mr. T, pre-Mr. T. So it's a definitive look that he's going for here.
Look achieved.
Inside of the tent, that's where we meet Tad. The good thing about Tad is that he knows all the jargon. Get it? He's a fetus in a jar, everyone.
Oh my God. I don't endorse that joke. I'm sorry. Oh.
And I don't say they're all winners. I just say them after I've written them because I put in the work. Barker number 2 works at the girly tent and may be related to Dick Van Dyke's chimney sweep from Mary Poppins. It's quite an interesting accent he's put on here.
I didn't notice it at all.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's Kevin Connolly too, in like the darkest wig possible and a fake mustache.
Yeah.
Referring to all of the strippers as his sister, which is
a choice.
Definitely a choice.
I love the strippers though. I love there's like a shot where, because they're not shot in a tantalizing way. Everything is shot looking up and scary. Yeah. There's women with pasties, I
mean, they are at least shown in a light where they are a show, whereas everyone in the audience is another nightmare given life. There's like the guy who's trying to be like sexy Popeye is in there. And then there's this trio I've referred to as Manny, Joe, and Yak. One guy's got a corncob pipe. And they're so aggressively turned on that it's practically performative. I think my favorite is the truck driver who has a Lincoln beard.
Yeah.
I really enjoy.
I just rewatched it to remind myself, and my eye caught that as well.
Of course, Barker number 3 is the person we'll get to know the most. Is dressed like Les Lie's dad character from You Can't Do That on Television.
That is a deep cut. Deep cut.
Yes, I promise you, if you Google it, that joke works. I do love the way he says terrifying.
Oh yeah, and he just like he has this like riff that he does. And it's just like terrifying.
And then the another person that we meet along the way is William Finley from Phantom of the Paradise and Eaten Alive. He's playing a guy named Marco the Magician. He is in sort of a shock wig makeup sort of deal. And he gives everyone a history lesson in the middle of the magic show, which everyone enjoys, and then stakes his own daughter in the heart and then reveals her. And that's the show, everybody. You stake one lady in the heart and you're done for the night. And he doesn't wait to drink. He just drinks on stage because he's keeping it real.
You know, he's very, you know, he's very economical with his time.
Yes. He knows what people want and he knows what they want to see. The other carnival worker that we meet is Madame Zena, who is a real piece of work. I couldn't quite determine what she was drinking. The cap made it appear that she was drinking straight Listerine, but it has to be some sort of alcohol.
I mean, oh no. Could be Listerine. I mean, remember that some mouthwashes do actually have alcohol in them.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that episode of Family Ties. I remember. So I do. Speaking of bits, Barker number 2 is the one who, in his faux Cockney accent, repeats over and over again. They wiggle and they dance. They wiggle when they dance. Like, okay. You're really getting into this, my guy.
God, I love it. I love it so much. Like these character actors are just like doing everything.
Yeah, they're making a meal of every line of dialogue.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, every single one of them, and you like Larry Block brings it up, and in archival footage, Toby Hooper mentions that like everyone is referencing Nightmare Alley as like a real. I saw that movie. It affected me a whole lot. I want to bring that vibe to the table. And it happens over and over and over again where you get that really aggressive, seedy, carny feel out of this. It really, they, as you said, they're making a meal out of it. Richie is the genius who hatches the plan that they all stay the night inside the funhouse. And he should be tried in The Hague for this decision. Let's just put it out there. It's real fucking stupid. Don't worry, folks. He will find a way to make it fucking stupider. I love the line that Liz says when they're peeping into the peep show. I'll find my own hole, which is super weird, but I enjoy it very much. And this entire time, like once they go inside the funhouse, Joey, clocks them going inside and he never sees them come out. And so you set up these dual plot lines that he knows they've gone inside and they never come out. And that's when he starts to become psychologically tortured by Amy's words that I'm going to get you back in such a way that it's going to destroy you. And I think it works. Congrats.
Oh yeah. I mean, like you said earlier, when he's grabbed by the Barker, it's like a cartoon. He just passes out. Yes. I'm surprised like he just doesn't turn, like his hair doesn't turn white.
That's true. Just one streak in the middle of it, like Ash in Evil Dead 2. So once our foursome is inside the funhouse, they hop out of their ride vehicles and instantly find places to straight up do it. Of course, Liz and Richie are evoking that Friday the 13th ideal of dry humping on wood, which, Jesus Christ, people, like, at least molest one another underneath the clothes. Don't just dry hump on splintery wood. And somehow Buzz gets Amy's shirt off. So at least we know that he made it to second base. But they're quickly interrupted by noises that they can't quite understand. And it turns out that the person in the giant Frankenstein mask is a gentleman we will come to know as Gunther. And he has arranged to pay Madame Xena to make sweet, I'll yell at you a lot, love to him. And as you might imagine, this does not end well because she tries to get things going, tries to give him a handy from the outset, and he comes like that. And for reasons we can't quite understand, he is embarrassed by this. But then he takes it an extra step and straight up strangles Madame Xena to death. I would like to briefly note a paragraph from the original New York Times review of this incident. Surreptitiously, the four teenagers choose to spend the night inside the horror show of the carnival. Never mind why, it doesn't matter. Among other things, they watch the monster and Sylvia Miles, who plays a fortune teller, commit a sex act. Presumably, it is unspeakably vile, but fortunately, Mr. Hooper has shot the scene mostly in darkness. Thank goodness we'll never know. Does he not understand what a hand job is? Is that what
I mean, I feel like at the time it was released, it, you know, the film quality may not have been
as bright as it is now?
Yeah. I mean, I would give him the benefit of the doubt for, you know, genuinely not being able to quite tell what was happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they just don't know what a hand job is.
That's also possible.
I mean, like, no one really appreciates the horrors, the true horrors of premature ejaculation.
True. And they certainly don't expect it to go as sideways as it does here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, nobody, hand jobs didn't really become a thing in film until, Yorgos Lanthimos. And then it's just like, okay, well, let's wait for the hand job scene.
Right. And you set the bar that high, it's really hard to get over it after that. But Xena's death is an orgasm of itself, as during their struggle, they back into an electrical panel, which sends sparks flying everywhere. It's an orgasm into and of itself. And of course, our foursome has witnessed this entire thing. And that's where they make the one good decision in this entire movie, which is to beat fucking feet out of that joint.
Miraculously, yes.
Yes. So that's not quite as easy as I've laid it out to be, as most of the doors, the emergency exits, as it were, that are not designated exit by any signage, are chained shut. And then
are you serious? They are violating safety codes?
Surely
you jest.
Buckle up, Gina, because I hate to be the person who bursts your bubbles here, but the people at the Funhouse are not operating up to OSHA code. I'm sorry.
Did they at least have proper smoke detectors installed?
We don't really know, but when the basement does literally catch on fire, we never hear any sirens. So my guess is no.
Yeah, I like that carnivals just kind of operate in their own jurisdictions. Like they're like transient jurisdictions where it's just like, wow, whatever happens in the funhouse stays in the funhouse, you know?
And I think our foursome probably might have had a chance up until the point where they witnessed a murder. And maybe even then. But when it appears to be that Buzz has found an exit for them, Richie goes, I'm just going to make sure that Madame Xena is dead. But instead of doing that, what he does is steal a carny's money. And when I tell you that that is perhaps the worst decision we have witnessed on this show, like, It's definitely the top 3. It's fucking insane. I don't know what Richie was thinking, but it's definitely, how do I complicate this so I make sure that I'm dead by the end of the night?
Yeah, it's just like why would it even occur to you to do that?
I truly do not know. But it turns out that Barker number 3, his name is actually Conrad, so we'll refer to him as thus from this point onward. But Conrad has not only, like, he's a bit perturbed that he's killed a fellow carnival worker. But when he discovers that all the money is gone, that's when he really loses his mind. And he kind of alludes to the fact that while they have left a trail of bodies everywhere they've gone, he's okay with that. But losing money is really too far. And he pushes Gunther to seek out whoever has stolen this money and kill them to get that money back. And once they do, they can go fishing together. And my question to both of you is, what does that fishing trip look like?
I like to think that Gunther just kind of, catches the fish, bites the head off and throws it back in the water.
I imagine a lot of fish heads do end up down the gullet of Gunther's mouth. That's absolutely true. That tackle box has got to be a disaster.
Yeah, I don't even want to know what's in there.
I just have note after note, like, good Lord, this movie looks so fucking good. Because it does. It just, everywhere the camera points inside the funhouse is another insane looking tableau. At one point, they walk both into and out of King Kong's mouth, and it's just fucking gorgeous. I'm reminded, and because we talked to April about this also, the mirror maze in Dr. Giggles. You can really tell that people there are like, I want to make this look as gorgeous as possible. And then they achieve that. They really elevate what could be and it's a very silly movie, but it's a very fun and silly movie, but it's truly elevated by that mirror sequence. And I feel like the same thing is happening here in the Funhouse.
Yeah, don't you think it's interesting that both Dr. Giggles and the Funhouse are evoking the James Whale films?
Yeah.
I find that very, the fact that this guy kind of formed the basis of all of these films. And it's that's one of those things where you're talking about earlier, how this kind of comes out and disappears in a lot of slashers. But this isn't a slasher.
Yeah.
I don't consider it that. I consider it in the same way that I think of, like a Frankenstein, really.
It's a tragic monster movie.
Yeah.
And playing in, it's that tragic monster stuff just woven into some slasher tropes. And it's so early in that slasher boom that they're just being established at this point. There's all sorts of slashers happening because while Friday the 13th has a lot in common, and it definitely happened because Halloween happened, it's trying to be its own thing. And, it's more of a whodunit in the same way that Prom Night is kind of a whodunit, and those are filmed at the same time. So a lot of this stuff is it does fit together as tropes after the fact, but what pushes this out in a different direction is that universal monster movie connection, and the care that goes into building up that third act. And one of the bad things that I think Friday the 13th did in the aftermath is it gave people a formula to go after. And when you don't exactly fit that formula, I think there are some horror fans who go, this isn't a good movie because it's not giving me that exact order of emotional and thrill hits that I get where every 10 minutes I'm getting X, Y, Z. And the Funhouse is not that kind of movie.
Well, that's why I was saying I think it was, you kind of left out of the conversation with horror for a while. I'm not even sure. I mean, it probably was, but I don't know if either you watched all 3 parts of In Search of Darkness, the very long, very thorough Shudder documentary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember if it was even mentioned in that.
That makes me wonder if it was. I know it took until the third version for them to talk about The Unseen, another movie that feels that,
it's unclassifiable.
Yes. And like weirdly is happening at the same time as this. Like the fact that the almost the entirety of the third act of The Unseen is basically the basement scene of the Funhouse. And the family dynamics are kind of similar. It's kind of wild to me that all this stuff was in the miasma, but I do feel like some filmmakers were reaching for bigger things. And I don't know exactly what people expected from Tobe Hooper, but I do feel Tobe Hooper delivers with this. Again, I don't doubt anyone's genuine emotional reaction to art, but this is one of those things where I think people need to give it more of a go to really get what it's going for.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
So we have Joey on the outside, who's kind of like our last remaining thread of hope of outside intervention. And so when he approaches the sort of underneath the bunting of the funhouse, Gunther reaches out for him, and he's so scared he ends up in the arms of a carny. And that pretty much ends any hope of that going the way. Like someone's going to intervene. And yet, because Amy and Joey's parents show up at the funhouse, she sees them at one point through a fan that muffles her voice. And she's screaming out for help from her family, and they can't hear her. And that's one of those incidents in this movie that I absolutely think, like, not a lot of movies try to go for this, where hope is just one heard scream away and fate just won't allow it to fucking happen. Like, this is not what's in the cards. She's trapped in the funhouse with Gunther and nothing can intervene. And that seems grander and bigger than just your average slasher film.
Yeah, and I think that unfortunately, you mentioned The Unseen. A lot of these movies were, and I think this one did fairly well at the box office.
It made 2.5 times its budget. It was fine. It wasn't a blockbuster, but
I think while we're horror fans of the early to mid '80s were so hyper focused on straight up slasher movies that you really didn't see these movies that are really trying something with the genre again for a long time.
Yeah. Yes, and it just got very reactionary. If someone wasn't trying to make a Friday the 13th, they eventually tried to make a Nightmare on Elm Street, which was in its own way trying to make a Friday the 13th. It just and there's joys to be found there, and we've talked about plenty of them. But I think the Funhouse is one of those more hidden gems that isn't on everyone's immediate radar, or they might have heard is a bit of a disappointment. But I am here to tell you that I definitely think you need to give it another chance. Let's talk about the deaths of our foursome, because really it takes until the third act for any one of them to actually end up dying. Richie's the first one to go, thank God.
Thank God.
The sigh of relief that came out of me when he was picked up by a noose and dragged off while money fell out of his pocket.
Honestly, it's too good for him. Should have been him who got his head pushed into a fan.
Truly, but the good news is that even though he's dead, there's still humiliation to come, because Gunther puts him inside one of the ride vehicles and shoves it towards a Buzz, who's armed with a prop axe. And he ends up burying that axe right in the back of Richie's head. It made me feel nice. It made me feel
it's satisfying. I don't. A lot of these, it just I don't really feel anything when the characters are killed. But you're Richie. I was like, okay, justice has been served.
He may be one of those grand exceptions to the rule of unlikable characters die. I think some people think you're always going to get a Richie-like reaction from your viewer where they're like, yay. And I just, you have to pile it up like Richie.
Most of the time, the irritating characters, or the meant to be irritating characters in in horror movies are just kind of, boring, and you're biding your time until they get killed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is pretty satisfying.
There's also like the nonsensical but satisfying thing where when his body is pulled up by the noose, the money falls from his pockets, like it rains down like confetti. Yeah. It's just like, yeah, of course, you're supposed to give that money back. You're not supposed to steal it from carnies. Jesus.
He pays a price for a sin, and it's not as stupid as like smoking marijuana or drinking or fooling around. I honestly, people really need to give it up with that bullshit. It's so weird that people become focused on like, oh, it's the final girl and she's virginal and that's why she's the final girl. Like, we need to give up that a young girl's hymen has magical powers, and that's how you outlast Michael Myers. It's fucking insane. Liz dies in an air shaft, and I have to feel there's this apocryphal story of on the set of filming this that Stephen King is telling Tobe Hooper about Alien, and he refers to it as a bunch of people trapped on a spaceship who were attacked by a skeletal chicken, and somehow this drifts down into Tobe Hooper's consciousness to the point where this air shaft death of Liz feels like it's both picking up on Alien and is picked up in Alien 3 by a different filmmaker that is looping back into the Funhouse. It just feels, it feels like too many people are too connected mentally here. And it's a feedback loop of cool ass movie tropes. Anyways, Liz gets clawed to death and has her face forced through a fan.
Yeah, I think that's a Richie level death. Liz doesn't deserve that. That seems to be more appropriate for Richie.
Yeah, Liz is a little too pushy with other people, like having sex, but that's like her worst sin here in this movie. And she's too big of a cheerleader of Buzz, but like we've all made mistakes of who we think should get together with their friends. It's fine. I did want to note that the carny who finds Joey and is wiping off his face tells Joey's drunk mom and dad, "I washed your boy up real good."
Which is just it's like, yeah, I'm just going to drive him right to the emergency room.
I mean, I swear to God, like if it wasn't totally inappropriate, I would put that on a t-shirt. It's just one of the most amazing lines I've ever heard in my life.
Do you think that we're meant to think that something else happened?
I don't know. I mean, it's
certainly, I think that he means in like a kind of taunting way, like that, you may not have done anything, but, he thinks it's amusing to make these normal middle class people think that he did.
I mean, he does say, you should have heard what I had to do to get your phone number from him. And that sent a chill up my spine as well. Yeah, it's a lot. And then, so our twosome that's left alive is Buzz and Amy. They walk into the literal mouth of madness that is King Kong. They get to one of the ride vehicle exits, which is also chained shut. But they're cornered by Conrad. And there's this bitchin' split diopter shot of Conrad holding the gun on Buzz and Amy that's just so fucking beautiful. It just, the care and the skill behind how this movie is constructed and photographed, I was really energized from it. Unfortunately for Conrad, he's not much of a fighter. He's more of a lover. Whereas Buzz is as bad a fighter as he is a lover. And so they really tussle in a lot of slap fighty ways, but finally Buzz gets the better of him and shoves Conrad onto a propped sword through the guts.
Once again, like safety violations, having apparently actually sharpened swords on display in their ride. Or
Conrad is just soft like butter and he'll just land on top of anything.
Yeah, he could be like built like a wedge of brie.
a wedge of brie with crazy orange hair tousled on top of it. Conrad has a revivification. He resurrects ever so briefly and minorly stabs Buzz in the gut, but Buzz gets Conrad's gun and shoots him twice, and that seems to, once he gets him in the tummy a couple times, that seems to be all he has to give. But we get great shots of Conrad drooling. Is this the most drool in a non-alien film that we've covered, Gina?
There's an excessive amount of saliva in this movie.
There's a lot of things going into mouths and too many things coming out of it. It's a lot.
Yeah. No, but nobody has their mouths closed. It's just, it's a lot of, it's very damp.
And just when you think they've overcome enough, Gunther drops out of the rafters. Buzz tells Amy to run as shots ring out. And when Amy sort of pulls herself together and thinks maybe I should go back and help Buzz, two doors open and Buzz emerges in the arms of a mechanical clown.
I mean, I absolutely want to go that way.
Yeah.
Even if the my death did not take place in a funhouse, please just arrange my corpse on a mechanical clown
to be presented on the arms of a mechanical clown.
I just want. That's how I want to be. That's how I want to be laid out at my funeral.
Well, I'm going to try my best. Here's the thing. At this point, Amy is like at an 8 on the Hooper scale. At this point, she is a quivering mass. But she isn't quite all the way there yet. She has to go full throttle through a Suspiria miasma before she gets there. She finds her way down to the basement of the mechanics, which is just like chains and sharp hooks, because why wouldn't it be? And so she crawls around this basement for 3 or 4 minutes just to establish every part of this joint is dangerous. And then at this point, that's when she's at a 9. She's just making squeaks of verbalization at the point. Words have gone away. They've flown bye-bye town. And Gunther finally launches himself out of a door at her, and she hits him a couple times with a crowbar in the head, which does nothing. And my question to both of you is Amy really weak, or just does Gunther have one hell of a fucking skull?
I mean, I think Gunther's got some steel plates in there or something.
I mean, there is a lot of skull to go around. That's for damn sure.
I think it's all skull. It's all skull.
As opposed to the Final Destination, Gina, where no heads had skulls. Just bodies were floppy.
Everybody was just like an empty sack.
Oh my God, what a terrible movie. What a great movie the Funhouse is. And so in the fight with this crowbar, somehow Gunther wrestles it away. But in that action, he swings too far back and connects with an electrical panel and lights up like a Las Vegas neon sign. And everything just becomes sparks and pain. Does he get hooked on one of those traveling chain hooks? Of course he does. Does he get dragged along while sparks fly and Amy just crumbles? Her performance here, Elizabeth Berridge's performance here, is amazing. It's just incredible that she's reached the point on screen where you can tell her brain is broken.
Yeah, she screams like everybody wanted to scream in the summer of 2020.
Right. And of course, Gunther is dragged by that hook into a pair of massive gears, which seemingly tear him in half, kinda. And yet he doesn't die for a really long time. His physiology is a mystery. I don't know how he operates. According to an interview with Larry Block that I heard, he did not want Gunther to die. He didn't think this cacophony of events would actually kill Gunther. He would live beyond this. And I don't know, maybe he would, grow spider legs. I don't know how he would operate without the lower half of his body, but okay. It's quite a way to go.
I mean, you've seen Basket Case.
Yes, I have seen Basket Case. Well, you know what? When you're right, Wolf. When you're right, you're right. Just very quickly, Dean Koontz, an author who owes about 85% of his success to having the last name that starts with K, so his books would be within spitting distance of Stephen King, actually wrote a tie-in novel to the Funhouse that expanded the story in the most batshit ways I've ever heard of. In his book, Conrad and Amy's mom are the parents of Gunther.
Oh, boy.
Oh.
And this entire event is built up by Conrad as a way for him to make a sacrifice to Satan. It sounds nuts. Because
is it as crazy as the novelization of Gremlins? And yeah, it actually does seem like it might be.
It sounds categorically insane. And of course, he badmouthed the movie. The movie sucked in his eyes. In Dean Koontz's eyes, this is a bad movie. So another knock on Dean Koontz. And of course, we have the famous shot of when Amy staggers out from the funhouse in the harsh light of day, and she just stares up at this. And I hate to say it, the fat lady,
cackling fat lady
whose eyes go in two different directions, and you can just tell, like, she's gone. She's a shell of a human being. She's like Sally in the back of that truck. She's gone. It's incredible what she goes through, and that it leaves you on like, yeah, she's alive. But she's not alive the way she was before she entered the funhouse.
Yeah, she's the no amount of buy one get one free corn dog tickets are going to recover. They're going to make up for that.
Yeah, I don't think the make goods they have for her are really going to equal her sanity. That's for darn sure. Good point, Gina.
Bootleg Bugs Bunny doll.
How do you feel about a larger stuffed panda, Amy? Won't that make up for this? April, did we miss anything that you need people to know about the Funhouse?
I just want to know what happens to the carnival. Like, do they get to keep going? I mean, they lost a lot of personnel.
They did. I mean, they are really down. They're going to have to recruit hard. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to hit up some like prison halfway houses.
Their Indeed listings are through the roof. Let's put it out there. It's going to be hard to recover from that level of personnel walking out the door on you. But of course, we cannot stop talking about the Funhouse until we choose your own death venture. That's where we decide of the deaths portrayed in the Funhouse. If you were to choose one of those ways to die, which one would it be and why? Up for bid today, we have strangled to death after giving Gunther a handy, noosed, hung, and having your head caved in with a prop axe, mauled in an air duct, pushed onto a giant sword like a sad sandwich, death by clown, ? And electrocuted and torn in half by gears. April, you're our guest. I choose you to go first.
Well, I'm actually, I'm of agreement over here in terms of I would like to be displayed on a clown after being stabbed. I think that's how I want to go. It feels dignified.
Yeah, sure.
And it feels, like angelic in a sense.
Yeah, it's like the Pieta.
I mean, yeah.
Except like, instead of Jesus, it's you. And instead of Mother Mary, it's a clown.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that looks, it's weird because it looks quite a bit like a chalk drawing I saw at the Pasadena Chalk Art Festival recently. But now that I think about it, like maybe that's why I loved that chalk drawing so much, to take a photo. So yeah, I mean, I think there's no other way to go.
I'm telling you, there's no more kill by kill cacophony of events. Quite like comparing a dead body on a clown to a Pieta, and then connecting it to the Chalk Art Festival at the Paseo Mall in Pasadena.
Well, I'll send you a photo And you're going to see it.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I just, I love how this discussion has turned out because all three of us are going with that clown. Come on. That's the way to go.
How can you not? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Who wants their face pushed through a fan? That just sounds like a terrible way to go.
No. After he's clawed it all up real good, like that's a bit much. I want my tummy poked, a little bit shot, and then delivered via clown to my girlfriend. Or that's not a girl. They're not boyfriend, girlfriend. This is their first fucking date. What am I doing? I'm like,
wow. You're trying to establish their relationship here.
Yeah. Well, we were poisoned early on in Friday the 13th. It was like the Wild West in the fandom, Wikipedia things. They would always ascribe couples who died together in Friday the 13th as having been buried together, one on top of the other. And after we started pointing it out, it mysteriously started to disappear. Like editors at fandom were like, no, that's got to go. So unfortunately, that only exists in our minds anymore. I really wish we had taken some screen captures.
That was our cultural impact, is getting somebody to change the pages of Wikipedia that claim that couples who died in Friday the 13th were buried in the same grave.
On top of one another is my favorite detail of that. Like one of them has to be on top of the other. Otherwise, it doesn't count. It does save space. Let's put it that way. April, the writers and actors are striking. So I would ask what you have to promote, but I'm guessing a lot of that is on hold.
Yeah, all of that is on hold. I mean, I can say that I have a sci-fi short story published in a magazine. I think that's...
We like that.
That's
Who
okay.
doesn't? A sci-fi story? I love sci-fi stories published in magazines. Which magazine?
It is... That's a great question. Artifact.
Okay.
It's like it's a long sci-fi story. Assemble Artifacts.
Ooh,
is the journal. With a handful of other some stories are horror, some are sci-fi. It's all genre, you may gather. But yeah, I have a short story. This is so weird. It's so weird to promote that.
Well, I would also promote that actors and writers are not asking for the moon here. They're asking to be able to afford health insurance and to be properly employed throughout a majority of their year, and to be able to advance their craft by sharing what they do, by being on set. It's really not a hard thing to say that we don't want to be replaced by computers that have just learned what other writers have done in the past and regurgitate it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It is stupid. It needs to end. The studios need to wake the fuck up, and hopefully collective action does what it does best, which is bring rat fuckers who supposedly are in charge of corporations to their knees.
Oh, now he's gotten political. Now we're gonna get canceled.
Oh no, you're gonna get some reviews.
Those one star ratings are finally gonna come after 7 years.
If we could get canceled, that would be great for us, Gina. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about television and movies at thespool.net. I also write about movies and television, and occasionally my paranoid rantings about the future of artificial intelligence on my Substack at GinaWatchesThings.substack.com. And I am on Blue Sky under Gina Does Things.
Yeah, do it today, people. Check it out. You can find our socials. We're on Blue Sky and Instagram, and we have our Facebook group, and we were on a different social media platform, but I can't remember what they call it, and I'm not going to use the new name, so fuck that joint. We have a Patreon where we do fun things like talk over Friday the 13th movies, answer your questions, and give you bonus episodes. And that just about does it for this episode. But don't worry, folks. The body count will continue for myself, for Gina, and for April. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.